Hi, I'm Jason from StrataGames, and today we're playing some more Pauper. This is Rakdos Control. This is a deck that was originally created by Teasdale, and I actually made a video on this deck previously. You can check that out right here. But the previous deck was really sweet. I had a great time with it, and then somebody on Reddit, Affectionate Elk on Reddit, suggested a few edits to the deck, and I really liked some of the ideas that they had, so I decided to go with that. The main differences that they mentioned was Guildsworn Prowler as a nice aggressive attacker. I was wanting a few more aggressive attackers early in the game. They can also trade with terrors and things like that. And then also Blightning. Blightning is a card that I've been wanting to bring back for a long time. It has not seen play in Pauper for eons, as it's a classic card, but 3 mana to deal 3 damage and also strip your opponent of 2 cards seems really good. The fact that we already are playing Refurbished Familiars makes it so that we have a little bit of this whole discard package, and we can just take a bunch of cards out of our opponent's hand, which felt like a really nice cohesive theme. Plus, with our Galvanic Blasts that we have, we can also kind of go for the burn win, with the Blightnings and the Galvanic Blasts working for that, so I'm really excited to give it a try. As mentioned, this is a control deck, so we have quite a bit of removal. The Galvanic Blasts that I mentioned, a couple cast downs, and a couple snuff outs, and then it's pretty standard at this point, and a little boring maybe even, but Krark Clan Shaman and Toxin Analysis combo is just really key to wiping all of your opponent's red creatures with just the Krark Clan, and then their giant Gruul monsters and things like that with the Toxin Analysis. We have some Blood Fountains to make it so we have affinity to pump out our Refurbished Familiars and to rebuy any of our creatures that die throughout the game. We have Crimson Fleet Commodore as a way to get the Monarch, and we can control that pretty easily with our removal package. We have 1 Gurmag Angler, another suggestion from an Affectionate Elk that I like. It's not too uncommon to see a 1 of Gurmag Angler in a control deck where you're churning through removal, pumping it into your graveyard, and then you get just this 1 cheap 5/5 later in the game. We also, of course, still have our card draw package for Deadly Dispute, Reckoner's Bargains for some life gain, and some Ichor Wellsprings. And then we have 3 Trolls of Khazad-dûm in order to be either lands or finishers in the late game. One of the main differences between this version of the deck and the previous one I was playing was we cut the Cleansing Wildfire, which means we don't have to play any of the clunky bridges except for the 4 in our color, but we still care about the artifacts because of Refurbished Familiar, so we're still playing those 4 bridges, and we're playing 2 each of the Mirrodin lands for red and black. I didn't want to go a full 4. It might be a little bit better for the Familiars or even for Deadly Disputes and things like that, but I didn't want to be that hosed by Dust to Dust and Gorilla Shamans. So we're only playing a moderate 2 of them. Still have a Rakdos Carnarium and a Bojuka Bog for a little bit of extra value. And then in the sideboard, Gorilla Shaman for affinity, Red Elemental Blast for blue matchups, Breath Weapon as a way to, another way to remove the board, but also as a way to hit flyers in case we go up against any sort of Glinthawk deck, though those are mostly dead, but also just against like white weenies. Not fully relying on the Shamans to wipe the board, I think is pretty key. We have a couple more Snuff Outs if we go up against Broodscale, another Toxin Analysis for the same reason, and any other big creature decks, Duresses for combo decks or control matchups, Campfire for life gain, and then a Nile Spellbomb for a little bit more graveyard hate. I really like how this deck looks. Let's jump into some games. Round 1 here, we just start with a wad of removal spells, but with 3 lands and removal to stop anything early they do, I don't think it's a bad hand to keep, so we're going to keep it, hoping they're playing something aggressive. And they play a Swamp and Pass. We draw a Refurbished Familiar, which we're going to be able to play maybe early with this Drawsforge Bridge. They play a Forest and an Ichor Wellspring, so we're thinking probably Broodscale, could be like a Golgari Gardens or something like that, but we don't see those too often. And we get a Krark Clan Shaman, which is pretty good if they are Broodscale, seeing as we already have the Toxin Analysis combo and all of this removal. We're just going to Bojuka Bog them now so we get our tap land out of the way, and I'm just going to play the Krark Clan Shaman. I did this just to be mana efficient, but also we want to have it on the field preemptively anyway, because we can't, it's not going to do us any good if it's on the field after they've gone for the combo, right? But they have been playing a lot of Shambling Ghasts recently, which can kill Krark Clan Shamans, so it is maybe a little bit premature to throw it out so early. Yeah, I can chip in for a little bit of damage, but that's not likely to matter too much, so I probably should have held it here a little bit longer, if I'm honest. We're just hitting our land drops, nothing too bad, and I have a choice here if I want to play the Refurbished Familiar for 3 mana, because we only have 1 artifact, or if I want to leave up all of my interaction. I would like to get this down, get the value from it, and also start adding to the clock a little bit, because I don't want to give them too much time to try to find their combo. But there is a possibility that they could combo this turn if I tap out. If they go with a Deadly Dispute here, they'll probably have up to 5 mana. That's exactly what you need for a Glee, a Brood Scale, and then also to adapt it. So it's a little bit risky. I would still have the Kark Clan Shaman with 2 artifacts out, so if they had perfectly 5 mana and nothing else, then I would be able to interact with the combo, and they wouldn't have the mana to like Tamio Safekeeping. Because of that, I decide to go for the Familiar. It is a little bit of a greedy play, though, I will admit. And they Eviscerators Insight the Wellspring, which still draws them 3 cards, but it's not a Deadly Dispute, meaning they don't get that treasure, so they're not going to have 5 mana to go off this turn, so it's unlikely they're going to be able to unless they have like a 1 mana way to add a counter to the Brood Scale, like a Snakeskin Veil or like a milled Maverick or whatever that is that adds a counter for 1 mana. They discard a Vines of Vastwood. Oh, and there's the Maverick I was talking about, Rebel Belt Maverick. So they have it, but it's not in the graveyard yet, so no worries here. They play a Wellspring and just passed us, so our Gambit paid off a little bit. We draw a Wellspring of our own. So again, every single turn now I have this. Well, should I leave up 3 interaction spells, or can I afford to play a Wellspring to try to draw into something else? I decide to play the Wellspring. I still have this Toxin Analysis for the Kark. I have a Galvanic Blast. And the Ichor Wellspring is another artifact that I can use for the KCS, so I think it's worth getting down and potentially drawing into something else helpful. Deadly Dispute's a great draw. If I don't end up using my removal, I'll be able to cast it and hopefully hit more of my land drops and more creatures. And we attack for 2. We're definitely not willing to trade our Kark Clan for their Rebel Belt Maverick. They sacrifice it anyway to a Village Rites. This is going to bother me as I just noticed it, so I'm going to... Boop. They Deadly Dispute their Wellspring in their main phase, so they draw a bunch here. And they're going to just play a Writhing Chrysalis, a good creature, of course, but we have a cast down for it. That is a removal spell that I think is probably worth using on a Chrysalis, even though it could go for a Brood Scale. But we're going to need to get rid of the Chrysalis to keep attacking anyway, so it's probably worth it. Plus, we have a bunch of other cards. I could just leave the Chrysalis around knowing that I can Toxin Analysis away the whole board at any point. But I think that that's one of the best ways to deal with Brood Scale, so I'd probably rather save that. In any case, I'm Deadly Disputing at the end step here, and I'll potentially cast down on the main phase here. I draw another Familiar, so we're going to play that, see what they discard, and it's another Maverick. And I go for the cast down. I still have enough mana to leave up 2 or 3 interactive spells, and I get to start attacking in for 3 now. And our clock is not too bad, 5 damage on the board here, but also that double Galvanic Blast can just go to the face. So I could put them 8 damage lower, meaning that they're only the 5 damage I need to hit them with and 1 more away from dying. So a little bit closer than it looks here. They start with a Duress, though. Luckily, I have redundancy on our Galvanic Blasts. They take one of those over the Toxin Analysis, potentially because they are worried about that burn win. Play a Colony Garden, and they're just passing it back to us. So bunch of O1s, which I can wipe out of the way if I want. I actually draw that Galvanic Blast back, so once again on the way to burning them out here. And I get to swing for that 5 damage. They're going to chump with the plant token just to minimize the damage and pass back to us. And we have another Deadly Dispute, so again, we can just draw a bunch. And if we draw a 3rd Galvanic Blast, we can maybe even just burn them out of the way totally. They play a Writhing Chrysalis here and sack a few of their spawn right away for a Wellspring, growing up the Chrysalis and passing to us. I decide to go for the Toxin Analysis here because I know if I can wipe out their creatures, then I can attack for 4 and I can burn them out of the way. They Vines of Vastwood my Kark Clan Shaman, which is pretty cool. I know that they play Vines of Vastwood. I forgot how it interacted with our creature here with the Toxin Analysis. Not too big of a deal, though, because I can still sacrifice the Ichor Wellspring to clear out the 2 spawn, which means they're only going to have 1 blocker for our Familiars anyway. We can still get in for 2 and then Galvanic Blast them. This also lets me Deadly Dispute the Kark Clan Shaman, not leaving any value on the table. So we're going to do that. They keep their Chrysalis, but unless they have something wacky for 1 black mana here, looks like I can just finish up the job by attacking for 2 and then double blasting them. And that's exactly what we do. For sideboard, we bring in 2 Snuff Outs, 3 Duress, and a Toxin Analysis, all just removal or ways to interact with cards in their hand. We take out the Blightnings because as much as I think removing cards from their hand is good, they have so many Deadly Disputes, so much card draw that I think the Duress pinpoint removal of their hand is going to be a lot better. The 3 damage doesn't matter too much from the Blightning, and we cut a Gurmag Angler and a Troll of Khazad-dûm because we just want to be faster than them, and I figured that those are going to be some of the slower cards. I don't think cutting 1 Troll is going to significantly impact our land count either, especially when we don't want to be as controlling in this matchup. We want to have a little bit more of an aggressive start. We get this pretty good hand. We get the Toxin Analysis Krark-Clan Shaman in our opener, a Snuff Out, and then also a Guildsworn Prowler Reckoner's Bargain. It looks pretty great here, so we're going to keep for sure. They start with a Garden, pass back to us. We're just going to play down this bridge, get our tap land going. We draw another Bargain, so we could definitely have the value going as well here. They're passing, repping a Deadly Dispute. We get a Familiar right now, 3 mana, so it's going to be a little bit till we can play that, but that's okay. They didn't Deadly Dispute, they're just leaving up mana here, but we get to swing for 2, and we drew a Deadly Dispute. We don't have another land, so they Village Rites their plant. We're probably going to Deadly Dispute our Guildsworn Prowler just to try to hit that land drop. And they Life Goes On, gain 8 life. That's totally fine. We hit a Troll, but no land drop, so we have to sack our treasure to use the Troll to find our land, which is a little annoying because we end up discarding a card here, a Reckoner's Bargain. And also we have to waste our treasure on that as opposed to on anything else we would love it for. But that's okay. At least we hit our land drop. They get a Writhing Chrysalis out here. A little annoying. We can kill it with a Snuff Out, or we can just KCS it whenever we want to. We're going to start with an Ichor Wellspring, trying to draw to that land again. We don't find it, and we're at 2 artifacts now, but still not 3, so the Refurbished Familiar still cost 2. So we're going to just play out the Shaman. We kind of need to be the mana efficient now, seeing as we have all these card draw spells and everything to draw back up. We need to be mana efficient, so we'll just play that out. They play that Maverick that we saw earlier. Going to scry a little bit, or rather surveil, Bene Forest, and pass to us. We draw another Wellspring, so we're going to play it. I could Deadly Dispute. It would let me see 3 instead of 1. I figured if I don't hit my land, I can just play a Familiar, whereas I didn't want to be getting rid of artifacts when we wanted them for the Familiars, but we hit a Guildsworn Prowler, still not hitting that land drop. I also didn't want to discard excess cards, but maybe it would have been worth it to find our land. They discard a Swamp. The good news is they're only on 3 cards here, so it's looking like we can maybe run them out of cards with the rest of our Familiars and things like that, though we did take Blightnings out of this deck. They Deadly Dispute, so back up to 5 cards here, and they swing for 4. I don't really want to lose either of my creatures, and I'm waiting for a good opportunity to Toxin Analysis to wipe away their guys, so I'm just going to take the 4 damage. We finally find that 4th land, play it, and we get to put down a Prowler, which can block the Chrysalis, trade for it very nicely. Swing in for 2 here, got to start doing some chip damage. And I'm just going to pass. Now I'm going to leave up my Deadly Disputes, draw enough cards to hopefully continue hitting our land drops, plus we have the interaction that we may need if they go for the combo. They Village Rites the Maverick and cycle a Twisted Landscape for some card draw. And they play a Shambling Ghast, as mentioned before. That being able to kill the Krark-Clan Shaman is annoying. When they actually go for the Guildsworn Prowler here, favoring the mid-range game plan of killing us with the Chrysalis, as opposed to going for the combo, which is totally fine. We have a Deadly Dispute, which we're happy to use on the Guildsworn Prowler. We draw 3 cards off of it. We could use that on an Ichor Wellspring, but we already have a couple more Deadly Disputes in hand. We are going to take another 4 damage from this guy, though, but we have another Prowler, which we can play and trade with the Chrysalis. They play another Life Goes On, going to 34 life, and another Shambling Ghast, which could deal with our Prowler, annoyingly. We're going to Familiar them, and they discard another Life Goes On. They did get burned out, so they saw it as kind of like a burn deck, which is totally fair, but it's nice that we're actually kind of more of a controlling deck, and the Life Goes Ons shouldn't be too problematic as long as we are able to take control of the game in the way that we want to anyway. We play the Prowler. It can trade with the Chrysalis. They do have a Ghast, though, so if they're able to sack it, they can kill the Prowler before it can trade again. But they take it for now, and then they do Eviscerator's Insight, killing the Prowler. We're going to go for the Deadly Dispute yet again, just to keep getting all of that value. But we're going to be going down to 6 here if we take another hit from that Chrysalis, so we definitely got to figure out if that's something we want to do. They play a Wellspring, and gonna go on the offensive here. So we decide to chump with the Krark-Clan Shaman, but go for the Toxin Analysis. If it doesn't work out, I can just chump, and I have another Krark-Clan, I have a Snuff Out, I have a bunch of things that I can do. Next turn, it's not that big of a deal if I lose this Shaman, especially because we have a Blood Fountain to get it back if we really need it. They have the Vines of Vastwood, and I decide to just let it go. I don't think it's that worthwhile. I could snuff out the Chrysalis knowing that we might need to do that anyway, but I'd rather my removal in hand be more varied if they do get the combo going, and I'd rather have a snuff out and a Krark Clan Shaman than 2 Krark Clan Shamans. So we draw another Toxin Analysis, which could be pretty nice here. We play our Shaman and our Blood Fountain, and we go on the offensive, swinging with both of our birds here, trying to whittle them down a little bit, seeing as they're up at 32 life right now, down to 28. And we're just going to pass the turn. We can kind of do the same thing we did last time. We could even snuff out the Chrysalis for full mana. Oh my gosh. We go for the block on the Shaman again, try the Toxin Analysis combo. They Vines it again, and I decide to Deadly Dispute our Wellspring, see if we can draw anything, maybe another Toxin Analysis, because we do have a third one. And I just snuff out the Chrysalis here, and they Eviscerator's Insight it, flashed back. So we do keep our Shaman this time, which I did want to do, but we are down to 6 and lost our snuff out from hand if they're able to get the combo through a Krark Clan Shaman. They pass to us, and we Reckoner's Bargain our last Wellspring, drawing a bunch, and we actually find 2 more snuff outs, although we can only cast 1 at the moment. Able to attack for 5 here, though, putting them to 23, and we play a Wellspring and just play out a Commodore. We're going to be able to deal 10 damage a turn here, plus we have the Monarch. They duress us, take one of our snuff outs. They have a Basking Brood and the Glee, so they've assembled the combo. They Rubble Belt Maverick it up from the graveyard, and here I can try to snuff it out, or I can go for the Krark Clan Shaman. I have enough artifacts to sacrifice over a couple of times. Problem with Shaman and no Toxin Analysis is they'll let one of the damage resolve, killing the Shaman itself, and then they will adapt or indestructible the Brood Scale in order to make it big enough or indestructible to survive the other pings. So if they just have an adapt or a way to put a counter on it, then just by sacrificing 3 cards to the Shaman, I can overcome that. But if they have a Tamiyo Safekeeping or something like that, I'm not going to be able to deal with it. So what I should do here is go for sacking 3 artifacts to the Shaman, and that forces them to use a Tamiyo Safekeeping. I go for the Snuff Out here, which is not great. And they have a Vines of Vastwood for the Snuff Out. My only option now is to go for the Krark Clan Shaman, hoping they don't have anything else. So I'm sacrificing 3 artifacts so that I can deal 3 damage to it. We do that. They let the first one resolve, and I bungled it because I forgot how Sadistic Glee works. I was thinking of it only in terms of the combo, but the other problem that I had here was that I forgot about the fact that if any creature dies, the Sadistic Glee will add a counter, which will not only start the combo, but also keeps the Basking Brood Scale alive. At which point I should attack the Brood Scale is sometimes pretty difficult. Sometimes I do think it's right to wait until the Glee has hit the creature, but sometimes it's not right. And this was an example of when I should not have done that. I should have sacrificed to the Krark Clan before the Sadistic Glee was on there, and I just kind of messed it up, to be honest. So that makes the Krark Clan Shamans not do anything. Maybe they had a Tamiyo Safekeeping in hand, but either way, I threw it away here. They're able to combo on top of everything, even if it was going to kill the creature, but it certainly is not. Snuff Out is taken care of, and then they have the Nadir's Nightblade, so I am just wrecked right there. You'd think after months of playing against Broodscale that I would have learned by now, but apparently I did not. This hand is okay. We have the Snuff Out. We have a Duress for early interaction. We really need to hit a red and another artifact land so we can get this Familiar down, get to our Commodore, but I think it's okay to keep. We'll give it a try. So we're going to just start with the Duress, see if we can take apart anything relevant in their hand, and we actually do get a Wellspring when their hand looks pretty reliant on that. Only 2 lands, and a Duress they can't even play turn 1. A couple Life Goes Ons, which can keep them alive, but not a big deal. And if we're able to keep them off cards with the Wellspring going away, maybe we can stave off that Chrysalis for a few turns. So it feels like a pretty good Duress, but we'll see how it plays out. We draw a Cast Down, gonna be okay, but definitely not what we need. We want those lands or 2 drops we can play. They find another Wellspring and play their Forest. We draw a Krark Clan Shaman. I decide to go for the Deadly Dispute on the Vault of Whispers, desperate as it is. We don't hit our land drop. So we just set ourselves back, but to be fair, we were going to be drawing nothing for the next couple turns anyway. We kind of didn't have a better option. They duress us, taking our Snuff out, which could set them up for a pretty good win pretty early here. They've also hit their third land, which is a little annoying. We do hit our second one, and we have a Deadly Dispute for a treasure, so maybe we can crawl back into this and it won't be too bad. They start with a Shambling Ghast and miss their land drop, so that's looking better for us. We get to Deadly Dispute. No land, even through all of this, so we have to Reckoner's Bargain our treasure. We finally hit a couple lands, draw Forge Bridge, put it down, but I was hoping to save that treasure for our affinity count. Not the case. And in fact, we have to discard a card. We discard a Cast Down, which, if I recall correctly, I believe was a misclick. I think I was going to discard like the Monarch or something like that, and I misclicked on the Cast Down, but in any case, that's what we discarded. They have another Wellspring, but still miss their land drop, and we are able to pick up a Prowler, and we have that Swamp. So here we can just play our Commodore. It looks a little awkward, but all we could otherwise do is play a Prowler and leave up some of these guys. I don't really want the Shaman to trade early. I could only play one of the two Familiars, even though I tried to play them both. It's unlikely they're going to have a lot of removal, and in which case they're not going to be able to kill the Commodore before the attack. And so if they trade this Ghast for Commodore, I'm honestly okay with it as long as I'm drawing 2 cards a turn. Obviously, it's a bit of a trade up for them, but the Monarch is just so powerful, and I'm not expecting any haste out of them here. They have a Deadly Dispute to draw some cards, still don't hit their land drop, so they Eviscerator's Insight the other Wellspring, finally hit their land drop, but they have to discard 3 cards because they drew so many in that turn. And they pitch a Chrysalis and a Life Goes On. We know they still have 1 more Life Goes On in hand. We draw a Snuff out here, and we decide to play our Familiar for 2, and then our other Familiar for 2. We leave up 1 Snuff out here, but we're able to apply a little bit of pressure on both their hand and their life total. They discard another Life Goes On, speaking of. They could maybe combo here, but again, like it was in game 1, it's probably going to be pretty tight on their mana. If they do, we have the Snuff out, so I'm hoping that's going to be enough, and I think we need to take the risk of getting a little bit of something on the board here. They discard another Brood Scale, and they Eviscerator's Insight their token, Twisted Landscape for their red source, and just pass back to us, so we make it out of the fire, and now get to just leave up a whole bunch of removal, which is great for us. We swing for 4, play our Mountain, and I guess instead of playing it safe, once again, seeing as they're discarding cards, I play the Troll to try to kill them in 2 turns, rather than playing the Prowler and the Shaman, and then leaving up 3 pieces of removal. I don't necessarily think that was right. Troll ends the game a little quickly. If they just have the combo and 1 protection spell, then the Snuff out doesn't do anything, and they actually have a Duress for the Snuff out. Luckily for me, they only have a Chrysalis here, so we lucked out, but I do think I played that a little bit wrong there. And then we get triple Galvanic Blast, and because of our 2 birds, we actually do have Metalcraft at the moment. So we swing with the team. If they block a bird, I'll just triple Galvanic Blast them in response when we still have Metalcraft. They're going to take 8 off of the Troll and the other bird. Or if they triple block the Troll, that's going to be 4 damage from the birds and then 12 from the Galvanic Blasts. So right here, we get a little bit lucky drawing that 3rd blast, take out their team, and then just put them to 0 from 12 life. Round 2 here, we get a pretty unreasonable hand. Only 1 land is not going to cut it, so we're definitely going to mulligan this one. And instead, we get a hand that looks pretty similar, but we have a Mountain and a Troll, which looks okay. I will say we really don't have anything to play for 2 mana, but I think it's acceptable enough that we will keep it. Probably pitch one of these Blightnings as much as I like them. It's just the thing that kind of stands out. We don't need 2 of them. Play our Mountain. They play Manor Gate on black, so I'm expecting probably Turbofog, which is not my favorite. There's been a black-green version going around. More excitingly would be like one of those Gates food decks that were kind of cool after Bloomburrow, but I'm not expecting that. So they keep Gate. We find an Ichor Wellspring, which is a great draw for us. Play it, turns on our Deadly Dispute. They have a Heap Gate, and they're going to put down a Lembas. We get a Guildsworn Prowler. We want to hit our land drops, though, so we're going to Deadly Dispute that Wellspring. And once again, not hitting our land drops. I don't really know what's going on. We do have, 19 lands plus 3 Trolls in this deck, so I feel like we should be hitting our lands a little bit better than we are. But what are you going to do? They have a Manor Gate that they play, and this is right around when I realize it's probably Turbofog. I'm not used to playing against Turbofog, so I realized that we probably need to start getting some aggression on the field, but I also just need to hit those land drops. So even though I'd like to play a Prowler and start attacking to pressure them, we have to play the Wellspring, hope for that land. We draw it, although it is a tap land, so we'll play it, begrudgingly pass here, and they're just going to Deadly Dispute their Lembas on the end step, drawing some extra cards. Then they're going to Heaped Harvest, which is an interesting one. Lets them search for a basic. And then they have a Campfire, which is going to be a little bit annoying, a lot of life for them for sure. We do get to double Familiar them here, but they do pitch 2 flashback spells, Moment's Peace and Eviscerator's Insight. They just have a Wellspring and pass back to us. Of course, they're going to start leaving up a lot of mana so that they can fog every turn that they want. We'll see if they want to fog just 4 damage here as we attack in, and they decide to take it. So we're going to try to crank up the damage a little bit. Put down our Shaman. They're not going to have any creatures in their deck except for Crypt Rats. I assume there's nothing else in there. And if the Crypt Rats is on the field, they're already going to be wiping the board. So Krark Clan Shaman, basically just a 1/1 in this matchup. Might as well get it down so we can start attacking with it. And we also play our Prowler. I'd rather just get these down rather than using like Bargain and stuff like that. I will say the Blightnings are going to be really good in this matchup because, first of all, cards is the key. If we're able to take out 2, or maybe if we get 6 mana, 4 cards out of their hand in 1 turn, then that's going to be pretty good. Also, the direct damage can be a nice way to get around all of their fogs, so we might be able to go for the burn win here as well. They Deadly Dispute their Heaped Harvest to search for another land as well as drawing 2 cards. Pretty good value for them, I must say. And they're going to just start with another Lembas, scry 1 and draw a card here. They hit their land drop and pass back to us. So we have 7 damage that we can attack with. One thing you have to think about when you're playing against Turbofog is that not only do they play a bunch of fogs, but they also usually play Tangle, which is a fog that prevents all of the attacking creatures from untapping on their next turn, which means that when you have a lot of creatures, you need to figure out what the right amount is to force them to play a fog, but that you're not going to attack with everything necessarily, because if it gets tangled, you might lose the ability to attack on the following turn. With 7 damage on board that we have right now, I'm not too worried about that. If they tangle it, and that's kind of just going to be how it is. I could go for 5 damage here and then save 2. It's not a ton, but it's not a bad idea to hedge there either. But if I have, say, 15 creatures on the board that can each deal 2 damage, attacking for 30 is overkill, especially if they're at 18. I might as well attack for 18 or maybe even a little bit less than that. But usually if you can force a lethal amount, then they're going to have to fog, so you want to do that. But you'd want to attack for 18 and not 30 so that you'd have that extra 12 damage to attack next turn. So just something you have to think about when you're playing against Turbofog, which is what I love to do. Looks like I actually do take that into consideration, just swing for 5 here. And they flashback the Moment's Peace. I know they have the Moment's Peace, but they also often like to leave the Moment's Peace in the graveyard because of Stream of Thought, which is a card that they play. Even in this black-green version, they usually splash a Stream of Thought, which can shuffle cards from your graveyard back into your deck. So they only like to use the flashback cards as a last resort. So they do cast it here, preventing the 5 damage, but whether I attacked with the Prowler or not doesn't matter here, since they cast the Fog. If they cast the Tangle, it would be nice that I had it up still. We're going to bargain away the Wellspring, see if we draw anything else interesting, and we draw a Crimson Fleet Commodore. No land, unfortunately, so we're not able to play it this turn, but we have the Troll, so we can still hit our land drop. It just costs us a mana, so the Commodore isn't going to fit into our curve this time. They Campfire up back to 20 life here. And they have a Crypt Rats, which is one of the things we were worried about. They're going to be able to wipe our entire board here. Draws us a card off Prowler, but otherwise totally stumps our aggression. Pretty annoying, I will admit. So we're just going to swing with the team, kind of force them to do it. As soon as we go to combat, they do for 1 damage. So we draw a card. Good news is we get to put down our Commodore and start drawing 2 cards a turn, which is not too bad for us, especially if we're going to go for that burn win. But of course, we always have to watch out for the Weather the Storm as well. So we can't just start blasting willy-nilly. We have to take a little bit more of a measured approach. They Eviscerator's Insight their Wellspring to draw a bunch of cards here. I was happy that they were looking to be 4-ish cards in their hand, a little bit lower, so we could double Blightning them. But they're already back up to 7, so that's not going great. We do draw a 3rd blast, though. Unfortunately, we just lost 2 of our artifact creatures, so we actually don't have Metalcraft at the moment, even if we did want to start throwing those out a little bit willy-nilly. We do have a 5/2, however, which is going to be able to attack, and is enough damage that it might force a fog itself, but if it doesn't, it's just 5 damage, which is pretty great. They heap gate up to make a treasure, but they do take the 5 damage, which is totally fine. I'll just play the Cart Clan Shaman. Again, it's 1 extra damage and doesn't do much else. We draw with the Monarch, and we're going to have to discard. And Toxin Analysis, our life gain doesn't really matter. They do usually kill us with Crypt Rats, but if we get to that point, they've probably gotten a million life anyway. And the Death Touch and everything just doesn't really matter. This is basically just cycling it with Investigate. So I cast it at the end step so that we don't have to discard a card. Might as well, so we can save it for later. They bargain away their plant, knowing we can kill it at some point if we want. They go for the Weather the Storm. It's only 12 life, so it's not the end of the world, but it is still quite a bit that we have to overcome. They're all the way up to 30, going into their turn 9, and they heap gate up to make a treasure. Golgari Rot Farm to bounce a swamp, and then they Lembas to scry and draw another card safely, and they're very comfortably at 8 cards in hand. They're even going to discard here, pitching a swamp. We get to go straight to combat, attack for 6. This damage isn't enough to split up if they do have the tangle. We'll just have to deal with it, but they take 6 down to 24. And we get to Blightning them now. We have the mana now. They have 7 cards in hand, but there's not really going to be another opportunity. We have this Deadly Dispute, which could draw us into 2 or 3 more creatures. And we have these Galvanic Blasts we're going to want to use at some point. So I just decided to go for the 4 Blightnings at them. They're not looking like they're going to be at lower cards anytime soon. So we might as well put them to 3 here, even if maybe they can climb back up. And they discard a couple Lembas, a Fog, a Forest. They Campfire. And they sacrifice a Lembas, staying still above 23 life, but only down to 3 cards. Let's see how that goes for us. They crack their Campfire, interestingly. It could just keep gaining them life, but they decide it's more important to shuffle their graveyard back into their library. Then they play a Wellspring, and then Deadly Dispute it right away, looking for some of those cards in their graveyard that they could want, those Fogs, those Weather the Storms. They find a Heaped Harvest, whether that's the one that they sacrificed earlier or not, who knows. But they do have a lot of lands, that's for sure. And they Ichor Wellspring here, and I'm definitely feeling, there it is, a Weather the Storm coming on, because they were just kind of throwing out a bunch of cards, not too worried about leaving up too much mana, although they still have 2 treasures in case they need a Fog here. But they're at 38 life, so that doesn't seem likely. We're going to play a Wellspring and Deadly Dispute it right away, see what we get. Another Blightning's not bad. Especially when they're at 3 cards in hand, we can Refurbished Familiar and then Blightning them down to 0 cards in hand. They discard a Moment's Peace, which they can flash back, and a Crypt Rats, which, as far as we know, they can't get back. So if they don't draw very well, they're at 30 life here, but we have 8 on board each turn and 12 in our hand that we can blast them with. We might be able to get the game just based on the value of discarding a bunch of cards here. But we'll see. They do happen to draw an Eviscerator's Insight, which could not be a more perfect card. It draws them 4 cards, and they have a million mana, so the flashback's really not that bad. And they draw right into a Campfire, which is going to gain them quite a bit of life as well. So we're still not in a bad spot. They're only at 1 card in hand, but definitely already dwindling based on the cards that they're drawing. They Campfire up to 31 life, make a treasure with their Heap Gate, make another treasure with their Heap Gate, and then decide to take the 8 damage. Oh, and then, excuse me, they crack their Heaped Harvest to gain 3 life and search for another basic, put it onto the battlefield. And we decide to crack a Clue. Why not? They're doing things, we want to do things too. They do take the 8 damage. I Galvanic Blast them because I'm going to have to discard, and I think it's unlikely that their last card in hand is Weather the Storm, though it's totally possible. But if it's not, I'd rather get it out when they don't have the possibility to storm off with it. They draw Deadly Dispute, so drawing very well. Get to cast that and into another Deadly Dispute, up to 4 cards in hand. Not to mention the Eviscerators they still have, and they hit their land drop. So crawling back from no value in hand, we're going to swing for another 8, see if they've drawn a Fog or if we're able to put them down low. They have the Moment's Peace in the grave, so they just flash that one back and take nothing. We do have a couple creatures we can play out here, though. Start with the Blood Fountain. We can buy back some Refurbished Familiars if we want to take away some of their cards. We Blood Token away our Great Furnace, see if we draw anything here, and just decide to pass the turn. I think I'm being a little cautious here because if they have another Crypt Rats, then any creatures we play are just going to get wiped away with the rest of them. 8 damage is enough that it feels like they're going to have to continue to draw Fogs, or play a Crypt Rats sooner or later. So I'm just kind of banking on doing this amount of damage now, and then once we get to the point where they have to Crypt Rats, or maybe they don't have one, we're going to win. But if they get to a Crypt Rats, we're going to have enough creatures to rebuild, because if we just put out all of our creatures, they Crypt Rats, and then we have no creatures left, we're definitely going to lose shortly after that. So we're leaving up the Blood Fountain and the Reckoner's Bargain to get a whole bunch of value on their end step, drawing cards, and probably bring back these Familiars to take cards from their hand. They do some more Deadly Disputing and pass to us playing a land, and we will in fact pick up those 2 Familiars. And we get a Snuff Out, which is totally useless in this deck. We're going to attack for 8. They have the Moment's Peace, but that means that we're able to take the last 2 cards from their hand, ideally. Of course, we forgot about the Eviscerator's Insight in their graveyard, so they're able to cast that right away. And then they have a Reckoner's Bargain to cast, so up to 5 cards, not taking their last 2 by any means. And then they have a Deadly Dispute for good measure. So instead of 2 cards, they have 6. Not quite what I was going for. I make them discard 1, but decide that, again, we don't want to overcommit to the board because of Crypt Rats, and if I'm not able to take all of the cards from their hand like I was wanting, I might as well just keep them in hand for later. They make another treasure, and on the end step, I discard a Snuff Out and a Cast Down. They're not going to do anything in this matchup anyway. They play a Colony Garden. I guess I could have snuffed out that plant token. So now we have 10 damage to attack them with. We'll see what happens. We know they have a Moment's Peace in the grave. Turbofog matchups are always a slog. One of the reasons they're so much fun to play against. So we attack for 10 here, and they do just flash back the Moment's Peace. At least we're churning through those 3 Moment's Pieces in exile that we are not going to have to deal with again, even if they can't fire back their graveyard again. And we decide to go for some more value, make them discard a card here. We have enough creatures that I think we're just getting tired of it, trying to make them discard some cards. Even if they go for the Crypt Rats, we're going to have enough creatures to refill the board, and we get a Troll to kind of solidify that a little bit more. They make some more treasures in our end step, and then they weather the storm, gaining 12 more life, back to 36, and they have that Crypt Rats. They're going to play a Wellspring, and just going to pass to us. We're going to Deadly Dispute a creature on the end step, might as well gain the life, and we know that our creatures are going to die to the Crypt Rats. And I sacrifice a treasure to the Quirk Clan Shaman. I don't really need the treasure for anything else, and I'd rather that they use the Crypt Rats on the end step here so that I'm able to play my creatures at any time I want on my turn. So forcing their hand a little bit, and they dump just 5 mana into this Crypt Rats, which is enough to wipe the board and hit us for a moderate chunk, not as much as I would have expected, but I guess they didn't want to use up any of their gate or treasure mana. And we don't Reckoner's Bargain there because I'm actually a little bit worried about milling out. That is one of their win cons, is milling us out, and we're already at 12 cards. I don't think drawing 2 more cards is going to be that relevant at this point, so I'm trying to be a little bit more moderate with that. We play the Familiar, make him pitch a Lembas, and then we just slam down a Troll, put down the Prowler, and decide that's enough. Leave the Gurmag Angler in case they get another Crypt Rats or are able to rebuy it, that we can hopefully have at least one more go at trying to deal them enough damage. They start sacrificing every single treasure that they have, which is for a Stream of Thought, to mill us out. And we don't have any way to counteract that. We are going to be milled out, and we are going to die. This is one of those matchups where you side out a million cards that are bad, and you put in some cards that are not very good, but they're just a little bit better. So we take out all of our cast downs, our snuff outs, our toxin analysis, and our Quirk Clan Shamans in favor of Duresses, a Campfire, which can shuffle our graveyard back in, a Nile Spellbomb, which can blow up their graveyard, taking out Moment's Pieces and Eviscerator's Insights and things like that. Gorilla Shamans, which can blow up all of their treasures, as well as their Lembuses and their Campfires and anything like that. Our first hand looks really good at disrupting them. It's not necessarily the fastest hand to get a fast start, but I will say fast start's not really the most important thing against the Turbofog deck. So we have 2 Duresses to take out key cards. We have a Gorilla Shaman, which can blow up whatever we need it to. And we have the Familiar, which we need some artifacts to get. But I think this hand looks acceptable, so we're going to give it a go. and probably just going to duress them turn 1. They mulligan to 6 and reveal Weather the Storm, Fog, and 4 lands. Not a great hand. It was a mull to 6, so I think it's a reasonable one to keep, seeing as they have their land drops. But we take the Weather the Storm. They have just 1 Fog, which we can take with our duress. Otherwise, they're hitting land drops, but as long as they don't draw too well, we might have a good shot at winning here. So they play their Conley Garden and pass back to us. We get a Galvanic Blast, and I just play the Gorilla Shaman. Might as well just have it on the field to start attacking for a little bit of damage, and if at some point they make some artifacts, we can destroy those. We duress them, and they reveal an Eviscerator's Insight that they drew, and so we're definitely going to take that. Obviously, they can flash it back, but we just don't want them to draw cards right now. And so they're down to 2 lands, a Fog, and 1 Unknown. So they're just going to pass back to us. We draw a Troll, so I'm going to attack for 1 damage, cycle the Troll for a, might as well do a red-black land, because we can't play anything this turn anyway. So we're going to do that, play the Geothermal Bog, and pass to them. And the lucky opponent drew another Eviscerator's Insight, so they were able to cast that, sacrificing their Conley Garden token. So pretty good for them. They play a Swamp and play a Trespasser's Curse. I don't think that's going to be too relevant against us, but it'll definitely get a couple hits. We sack our Gorilla Shaman to a Deadly Dispute. We just kind of need to draw and get something going. And we have a Blood Fountain that we're able to bring it back with if we want. They currently don't have any cards that are looking like they're going to be artifacts, so it's not too big of a deal. And then because we get the Blood Fountain down, we're able to play the Familiar, take that Fog out of their hand, and start applying damage that way. We also do have triple Galvanic Blast again and Metalcraft, so we definitely could get a fast game here if we're lucky. They play the Forest, making it so we don't know any of the cards in their hand, but we get to attack for 2 here. Play a Guildsworn Prowler, up the damage to 4 a turn, which is going to start needing some fogs, or we're going to be able to kill them pretty quickly. We're just going to Galvanic Blast them on their end step when they pass back to us, be mana efficient, and I want to be able to use both of these Galvanic Blasts if we need this turn, and we only have 2 red to do that. So attack for 4. They do have a Fog, which is totally fine. We're going to Carnarium back our Swamp, leaving up both of our Galvanic Blasts. We're actually going to float the black mana and Blood Token away the Swamp to try to draw a card, and then I realize the Blood Token was necessary to have Metalcraft. That was not a very smart idea. Now my Galvanic Blasts only do 2 damage until I can find a 3rd artifact again. Definitely I just was like, oh, I need to draw something faster and try to win faster, and I whiffed on that idea a little bit. So not looking great, but they still have 4 damage coming in every single turn. And so it could still be okay. They go down to 10, so if you can find our artifact again, we have 8 damage to hit them with. If not, 4. We get a Gurmag Angler, and I decide that they don't have anywhere near enough black mana to deal with this Gurmag Angler from a Crypt Rats anytime soon. So I'm going to just fully commit to the board, exile a bunch of cards from our graveyard. They do get another ping off the Trespasser's Curse, but we're going to be able to hit for a bunch here, and without fogs, they're going to lose. So they do Deadly Dispute. They have 7 cards in hand. They can definitely find those fogs, and a plant token's not going to be bad either. It's going to be able to block this Gurmag, but it's looking okay. They do have a Campfire, which can start gaining them life. We do have a Gorilla Shaman we can buy back from the graveyard at some point, but that could be a few turns away. We're going to play this Wellspring that we drew. We get a Reckoner's Bargain, but that Wellspring is our 3rd artifact again, so it didn't take too long for us to get Metalcraft again, even if it was a bit of a mistake early on. And they decide to Moment's Peace here, preventing all of the damage. And so I just pass. I will say it might be a little too tempting to Reckoner's Bargain this Wellspring, that I might go off Metalcraft again, but drawing 3 cards, ideally we can find it again. They heaped Harvest to find another basic, and are putting just more cards on the board that can gain them life, which is going to make the burn win a little bit harder. We are going to bargain away that Wellspring. As I said, it was just too tempting. We get a Blightning, though, and Monarch, so we have some good value here. They are at 3 cards, but we know how that goes. Maybe the Blightning's not going to be the best thing to do here. We're going to attack, and they take 4 and chump the Gurmag Angler. We decide to go for the Blightning. They can't fire up to 11, but then they discard 2 cards here, Crypt Rats and a Moment's Peace, which are pretty good ones to get. Of course, their last card could be really good, and it is a Weather the Storm, but They're at 8 life and no other cards in hand and not enough mana to sacrifice their Heaped Harvest. We're able to double Galvanic them here because we drew a Drossforge Bridge, so we did find our Metalcraft so that we knew we could maybe kill them here. And we get the double Galvanic Blast off on them before they're able to gain however much life they were going to gain. Game 3 here we have not a very good hand. Only 1 land, so it's definitely going to be a mulligan. And we get another one that's acceptable. 2 lands, plus the troll, so actually 3 lands. Some good value here. So we're definitely going to keep it. They start with the Colony Garden. They are a little bit under the gun here at 8 minutes. Starting the game, seeing as they're a Turbofog deck, could be a little bit slow. We have plenty of time for ourselves. They play a Wellspring, and past us, we're going to get down to the Prowler, start chipping in for some damage. They have their Basilisk Gate. We're going to swing for 2 here. And we're going to just cycle the Troll, get a Swamp, and leave up our Deadly Dispute. We want to hold the Bojuka Bog as long as possible in case they Eviscerator's Insight or Moment's Peace in the short future here. They Deadly Dispute, though. Draw a bunch of cards and Lembas. Scry and draw. And they're going to Nile Spellbomb us, which is a little annoying seeing as we have this Blood Fountain. But we're going to Deadly Dispute and draw. We get another Blightning, so we might try to hold those for a big 4-card wrenching in the same turn. They have Bojuka Bog, so they're able to hit our Troll now and still hold up Spellbomb for creatures later, which is a little annoying. They have a Campfire, which means they're going to start gaining the 2 life, offsetting that we're dealing with the Prowler every single turn. We do get to Deadly Dispute and Reckoner's Bargain here at the end step, drawing a bunch of cards, and we get a Gorilla Shaman, which is great. We can pick off the Campfire right away before it does anything more than just 2 life here, which is pretty good for us. They block our attack and bargain away the plant. We're going to slam down the Gorilla Shaman and just eat the Campfire. And they gain the 2 life that we anticipated. Nothing in the graveyard that's relevant, so we're just going to play the Bog. The Geothermal Bog, that is, not the Bojuka Bog. They Lembas. And Lembas again. Like a Hobbit, eating 3, maybe 4 Lembases. We get to swing for 3 damage here. Chipping in for a little bit. Not enough to warrant a Fog, though. We're going to play a Swamp. We have a Spellbomb of our own to leave up, and we have a Familiar here. And Familiar now, I have 6 lands on the board, so I decide to Blightning them, knowing that I can double Blightning them again next turn. Probably can't take every single card, as we see they Reckoner's Bargain here, but getting 7 cards over the course of 2 turns out of their hand is still going to go a long way to getting this game done. They do have a Crypt Rats, which is a little annoying. They're going to be able to wipe our board, but we can hopefully wipe their hand. They go for the Crypt Rats in the end step here so that we don't have any Deadly Dispute shenanigans, which is totally fair. And we go for the Blightning. And they Spellbomb us in response, which honestly, that's fair. I probably should have played this Swamp first so that I could have had the Blood Fountain up. It probably wouldn't have sacked the Spellbomb at that point, but then it would have at least made them think twice. And here I kind of gave them the free draw, which makes it so they don't have to discard every card in their hand. But that's how it goes. Blightning them down to 10. They discard 2 lands. We're going to Blightning them again. Also waiting on the Bojuka Bog in case they discard anything juicy. They discard a double Tangle, which is pretty nice. And they do have 1 Moment's Peace in the grave. So we decide just to go for the Bojuka Bog here. We still have the Nile Spellbomb for a later card in the graveyard that's relevant. They weather the storm at the end step here, just gaining 9 life. Not too good for them, honestly, and especially when it was their last card. They play a Golgari Rot Farm, activate a Heap Gate, and sack a Lembas. A lot of mana and things that doesn't really do much except gain them a little bit of life and make 1 treasure for them. We draw another Blightning, which doesn't look great for us, but that's okay. We get to slam down our Troll, start hitting in for 6 every turn here. They play a Colony Garden, getting a plant token, but that doesn't do too much. And we draw a Gorilla Shaman, which is pretty nice. We can take care of treasures, which they're going to make another one of right now. And if they happen to tap out, we can blow up this Lembas, but that's probably not going to happen. Either way, we can get rid of it, which could be pretty nice. We just play the Gorilla Shaman because it is an extra damage we can deal every single turn. And we blow up those treasures while we can. Taking the treasures away is pretty nice, honestly. It makes it so they can't Deadly Dispute them. And they actually sack their Lembas right here, doing us the favor of not having to spend 5 mana to try to blow it up before they sack it to themselves. They play a Necro Wellspring, an artifact we're not going to destroy, and they Basilisk Gate up their plant for just 3. Not really something I'm that concerned about. I will certainly take 3. I think we have a little bit of a faster clock than they do, but we'll see how many Fogs they have in hand. We're going to attack for 7 here. And they do have a Moment's Peace, which is totally fair. Luckily, we have the Spellbomb, so it's only going to be one turn of a fog. We're just going to crack the spell bomb right away in case we get anything relevant. We get a campfire that can offset the damage they're dealing from their plant token. We'll pass to them. We're going to save this Blightning just for if they happen to leave one card in hand at any point. Until then, it's just a lightning bolt to the dome, so might as well just keep it. They're going to buff up their plant and attack. We blew up their campfire that they played. They gained 2 life off of it, but otherwise it's gone. We Ichor Wellspring into an Ichor Wellspring into a Familiar into an Ichor Wellspring, which is pretty good, honestly. Able to attack for 7 here, and we have a Galvanic Blast, so 7 damage in hand, a bunch on the board. They do draw a Deadly Dispute, though, so they're able to draw back up to 3, play a Colony Garden, and Eviscerator's Insight, and we just blow up their treasure right away before they can Eviscerator's Insight it as well. They have a Wellspring, another Wellspring, so they're trying to mimic us a little bit here with the double Wellsprings, but they didn't have the triple Wellspring, so that's no Tron for them. We get to activate our Campfire, go for the offensive here, attack, hit them for 8, and we get to Blightning them for 3 damage, and if they have any response, we can Galvanic Blast them. They don't, and we're able to take match 2. This hand looks pretty good. Bunch of mana, bunch of cards. We're going to keep it. Looks like we're against Izzet Control, probably, with the Volatile Fjord. We draw a Blood Fountain, so we're going to get that down right away before they can Spell Pierce it. They're just going to pass back to us. We'll play a Prowler, see what they have to say about that. Prowler's pretty good in this matchup. It's going to be able to trade for a Terror, or just trade for a Lightning Bolt and buy back our card, which is pretty good for us. We play another Prowler here, and then play the Familiar. They counterspell the Familiar, which is the one we would have preferred, but that's okay. They're just hitting their land drops and passing back to us. We're going to swing for 2 here. We do have a Blightning, and they're already on 4 cards, but we probably know that they're just going to counterspell it. Plus, we'd prefer to Reckoner's Bargain, draw cards here to make sure we hit our land drops. They don't have a land, but they do have a Spell Pierce for our bargain. Totally fine. We're going to swing for 2 more here. Don't have a lot going on, so we decide to go for the Blightning. Yeah, use up our mana, might as well. They have the Counterspell, which is okay. I will say this is playing into their potential terrors a little bit, which is annoying, but we do have a lot of removal for them and a Death Toucher on board. So it doesn't feel like the end of the world to me. They have a Murmuring Mystic, but no mana left up, so I'm not too concerned. I can just blow that right up. I'm going to offer the trade, and they politely decline, but we're going to snuff it out here. I could cast down, but I realized that if I snuff out, I can Blood Fountain back both my Familiar and my Guildsworn Prowler this turn, and I'd rather get those back and start applying that pressure again. So we leave up all of our mana here. And they Tolarian Terror. Now is the question, do I want to cast that down right now for 4 mana, or just buy back my guys with the Blood Fountain? I decided not to go for the cast down, mostly because they could have Spell Pierce, which would kind of wreck us, but also these Prowlers are going to do a great job dealing with the Terror anyway, so I don't really think I need to cast down right now. So swing with our Prowler, just keep chipping in for 2 damage, play our second one, and then play our Krark Clan Shaman, which can just be a chump blocker, or if we find a Toxin Analysis, can obviously kill off our Terror, or their Terror, rather. They ponder and pass back to us, but they do have another Terror, so it's a little risky to attack here, at least all out. We decide to go for the cast down because if they have 2 Terrors, I don't really want to attack at all. That's too much damage. We could be in Lightning Bolt range or double Lightning Bolt range. But if I'm able to cast down one of the Terrors, I'm going to feel a little bit more comfortable going on the offensive. So we'll see if they have the Spell Pierce here, but I'm in a better spot even if they do. And they don't, so I'm comfortable actually swinging for 4 damage here because our clock is faster than theirs. And they take the trade, which is not only great because their creature is way better than ours, but also this only doesn't draw us a card if it's blocking. If it's blocked, we still get to draw the card. So absolutely fantastic for us. We get a Deadly Dispute. They find another Murmuring Mystic, which we don't have the removal for right now. We have a Galvanic Blast, but doesn't quite do it. And I decide to attack with both creatures, thinking that they might not block with a Mystic on the Krark Clan because it's kind of a bluff. But if they do, I can worm my way into getting 3 artifacts this turn with both the Deadly Dispute and the Refurbished Familiar so that I can Galvanic Blast it. I was thinking I'd be able to sack the Shaman that I had attacking to the Deadly Dispute and then also Galvanic Blast the Mystic, but it wouldn't have dealt the 1 damage that was necessary. So it actually ended up being a little bit awkward. I have to play my other Shaman out to sacrifice it to the Deadly Dispute, to then play my Familiar, make them discard a card, which is an Azure Fleet Admiral, and then I can Galvanic Blast the Mystic. So a little awkward, but the Shaman wasn't doing us much good anyway, and we still end up with 2 power creatures on here and then with no Mystics. So I'm not too upset with how that went, honestly. They have a Ponder into a Deduce, not looking great. We have 4 damage here, so they definitely need some removal spells. We want to find a Galvanic Blast, of course. We do get to just hit for 4, and I'm going to just pass here. I don't want to Deadly Dispute while they have Counterspell mana up, but they do very politely sack their Clue token, which means we're going to be able to Deadly Dispute our treasure on the end step, looking for that Galvanic Blast. Don't find it here, so we're going to Deadly Dispute that treasure token. Still don't find it, but we find a Reckoner's Bargain, so I sack that, and then we still don't find it. But honestly, we just drew 4 cards, I think, net. Pretty good, especially these Blightnings are going to be good. They can just go to the face or whatever. They have a Scred for our Familiar, not a big deal. And then the next card after we drew 6 was Galvanic Blast, which is just kind of funny, seeing as especially now we don't even have Metalcraft, and also they have Counterspell mana up. But I think we're going to be okay either way. We attack for 2, and then we're going to Blightning, and then we Galvanic Blast them. They Counterspell it, but we're able to Blightning them, see if they have another Counterspell, and they do not. Sideboard, we get to bring in all the Pyroblast effects, the Snuff Outs, and the Duresses. All of those are going to feel pretty good, plus the 1 Nile Spellbomb. I will say Krark Clan Toxin Analysis combo is not bad in these matchups. It kills Terrors, great. It kills Monarch creatures, and it kills Murmuring Mystics. But it doesn't kill birds, and also they just don't generally have more than 1 to 2 creatures on the field. They can bounce or lightning bolt or counterspell. They can interact so many points along the way that sometimes I'm feeling it, sometimes I'm not. Most of the time not, and certainly not here. The hand that we get here is not great. I mean, double Red Blast and a Snuff Out looks pretty good, but just 1 land. We're really banking on drawing a red source, so we're going to mulligan this one, and we keep a pretty reasonable hand here. I'm hoping a pretty reasonable hand, I will say, if they don't get Gorilla Shaman. If they get Gorilla Shaman early, we're just dead. Our 2 lands are going to get blown up. We bottom our Monarch creature. We do have a Red Blast to deal with blue spells, but we don't have a Blue Blast to deal with red spells, aka Gorilla Shaman. So we're just praying they don't have it, and we'll see how it goes. We're going to start with a Great Furnace. We have the Red Blasts for anything that we need. They're just going to pass back to us, and we get another Blast. It's going to be good, but first we're just going to start with our Prowler. We could have played the Refurbished Familiar, but might as well save that. I will say they once again just Scred our Prowler and draw an Ichor Wellspring off of it. Like, I'm loving this Prowler. Even if it just dies to a removal spell, we instantly get our card back. It's fantastic. They hit their land drop and pass to us. We don't hit our land drop. We play a Wellspring, hoping they don't counter it so that we can hit our land drop, of course. But if they do, it's not the end of the world, and they do, in fact, have a Lose Focus. So not looking great, but we didn't really have anything else to play. I could have Blood Fountained and held up a Red Blast. That could have been okay, but I really want to hit that land drop. So, you know. They do tap out for a Murmuring Mystic here. I will say, when I made that play of the Ichor Wellspring tapping out, I did think if they play Murmuring Mystic here, we're fine, because we just Red Blast it, and it's not a big deal, and that's exactly what happened. So, now we get to play our Blood Fountain as well, and we can sacrifice the blood token to a Reckoner's Bargain, or we can just, you know, whatever. They have a Brainstorm into a Landscape Sack, into a Ponder, hit their land drop, but still only at 3 cards, so we're not doing terribly. And we have a bunch of artifacts now, so we're able to play our Familiar for 1 mana, and we have 2 Red Blasts up. So we're just able to hold these up for counter spells if we really need, Murmuring Mystics, Terrors, or anything like that. They discard a Hydroblast, which is pretty nice to see, honestly, because those will be kind of problematic. So we're just going to pass leave up these blasts. They have a Brainstorm, obviously not something that we care that much about right now. We're going to let that go. And they hit their land drop, which means they only have 2 cards in hand, which means I know I'm going to be able to Red Blast these things, which is great. So they Lorien, I get to blast that, and they have the Hydroblast, but we have the second blast. So we're able to trade 2 for 2 on them, getting rid of that Lorien. They're out of cards in hand. And we have a Nile Spellbomb off the top, which is just a godsend. Not only do they have no cards in hand, now they have no cards in graveyard. So a Terror that they draw is a dead card because they only have 6 lands on board. So empty hand, empty graveyard, 6 lands, feels pretty good for us. We swing for 2 and just pass back to them. They draw a card and pass to us. Could be a myriad of things, but a Terror would be pretty funny. I'm going to swing for 2. Cycle this Troll to hit our land drop for the turn, and I just grab the Geothermal Bog because I don't need the mana, play the Guildsworn Prowler, and they pass again, 2 cards in hand. We're going to attack for 4, and since they have 2 cards in hand, I'm going to try to take them, see what they have. They discard a Azure Fleet Admiral, which is pretty good because that's a Monarch creature. Obviously, they didn't want to give us the Monarch, and a Scred. I assume that they F6'd for some reason because they didn't Scred something in response, but that's okay. we're in a pretty good spot. Anyway, they draw their card and they just scoop it up. Round 4 here. This hand looks not great, I'm going to be honest. We have bargains, but they're not deadly disputes. We don't really have anything expendable. We have a familiar that we can play on turn 3 because these are both tap lands. Gurmag we can't play for forever. We don't have a swamp for the snuff out. I just hate mulliganing so much that it's just barely playable. So we keep it. We just need to find like one expendable artifact and we're like golden. So maybe we'll get there. They play a forest and a Utopia Sprawl on white. If Utopia Sprawl usually means like red-green monsters, but on white means Bogles. We have a ton of removal in this deck. Not a lot that hits creatures that have hexproof. We do have the Krark Clan Toxin combo though, so we're going to be looking for that. We draw Guildsworn Prowler, which is going to be fine to play next turn, but and something we can sack to the bargain and not too upset about. But also not a 1-drop, obviously, here. They rumble into 3 forests and a Bogle, taking the Bogle and playing it right away. Very smartly, we find our Vault of Whispers, able to make them discard a card with our familiar, and we have that Guildsworn Prowler, which is a Death Toucher, which is pretty good. There's definitely no way they can get around Death Touch. They have an Abundant Growth, draws them a card, and then they have a lifelink, and then a way to get around Death Touch with Ethereal Armor gives them first strike. And then they have a Silhana Ledgewalker. They attack for 5, and we just pass. If we're going to start chumping, we might as well do it with Reckoner's Bargains, so we're going to start doing that. We draw a Blightning, perfectly timed when they have no cards in hand, and this hand's just looking terrible on a bunch of levels. They have an Ancestral Mask for their Ledgewalker, so now they have 2 threats coming in. So I'm just going to block the Ledgewalker, more damage, and it's with our Flyer. And we can only Reckoner's Bargain 1 creature right now, so I'm not going to block both of them. So block with that. We draw a familiar. We're able to play the familiar, draw a card because they don't have anything, and we actually draw a Toxin Analysis. This Ledgewalker doesn't have first strike, so we can use the Toxin Analysis on the familiar to make them trade, which is honestly pretty good for us. We also get to draw a card off of it. So we're going to leave back. They're gaining life, so there's no reason to race here really until we have control of their creatures, and that's not the case right now. So we're going to go for the block, try to trade, and we draw a card off the clue, and we are able to get there, which kills their creature. We can Blightning and then Gurmag Angler in the same turn, which is good because they have a 5/5 first strike. We have a Gurmag, which is going to be a 5/5, and we have a Death Toucher, which means we can double block, and we will kill their Bogle if they don't have another aura. And then they draw an Ancestral Mask, which means we're back to chumping. So we chump with our Death Toucher. It doesn't really do anything. We're going to have to now chump with our Gurmag Angler. We saved that one because we can gain more life off of it from the Reckoner's Bargain. And we're just hoping they don't get trample and that we find our Krark Clan Toxin Analysis combo. They have another Slippery Bogle. They're going to swing, so we get to block Reckoner's Bargain, the Gurmag Angler, to gain 7. We get a Familiar and a Cast Down. So play the familiar, draws us a card. We get another Blightning. These are not looking great. We can chump for another turn. So we're going to do exactly that. Deadly Dispute the familiar. We get a troll. We can chump with the troll if we need to. If we just find those 2 cards, we're going to be able to probably win the game pretty quickly after that. But right now, we got to play a troll, a giant 6/5, excuse me, that's just going to die. And they find an Ancestral Mask. It doesn't technically kill us this turn, but it's going to put us to 2. And I concede. I guess it could have not killed us. We could have drawn a Deadly Dispute, and then it could have drawn us the perfect 2 cards. But I guess I was just over it at that point. I think that's pretty reasonable, but I probably should have played it out that one more turn. We don't have much of a sideboard for this matchup. I will say we take out 2 Cast Downs, 2 Snuff Outs, and 2 Blightnings. We put in a Campfire, which does a little bit, Duresses, which can be pretty good, Breath Weapon, which could do some work, and another Toxin Analysis, which is obviously our main game plan here. So we keep this hand. It has Guildsworn, Toxins, so we only need the KCS, and then a Reckoner's Bargain, not bad. It is a little awkward because we don't have black mana till turn 3, but that's okay. They Utopia Sprawl, play a Bogle, instantly Sentinel's Eyes, and Rancor it up. The good news is that we could trade this Bogle for this Guildsworn Prowler, so I duress them to see if they have any first strike or anything like that that's going to prevent the trading here, and I accept the fact that we're going to take 1 damage here, or rather 1 hit for a good amount. They have a Spirit Link, a Forest, and an Ancestral Mask, so we take the Mask and then leave them with the Spirit Link. They play with Forest and then buff up their Bogle, but it's just a 4/2, so we can still trade with it, assuming they don't find that first strike. We play the Prowler, they Abundant Growth, draw a card, Rancor, but they just pass because they don't want to lose their creature. Pretty good for us, so we get to Reckoner's Bargain, and I just Reckoner's Bargain away a land. I just want to find some way to deal with this creature. Clan Shaman's probably it, and I want to be able to apply pressure to them quickly, and so I'm willing to sacrifice the land in this matchup. I play an Ichor Wellspring and a Drossforge Bridge that I draw. We get another Blightning. We sided a couple out, but not all of them. They find their Ethereal Armor because they're extremely lucky. We take the 13. We then draw the Clan Shaman, so we're pretty lucky too. We right away, Toxin Analysis, blow up their guys, and draw a card, and then we're able to play another Familiar, take away one of the Rancors that they brought back to their hand, and we play another Shaman. Then they find a Free Wind Falcon, which has protection from red. Unfortunately, we sided out all of our cast downs and our snuff outs, so suddenly realizing I don't think I have an answer to this creature. Now I can trade a Refurbished Familiar with it, but if they are able to, get it first striker big enough to survive a Familiar, then we might very well die. So we attack for 2, but they're at 37, so that's not going to go very well. And they draw really well again, get another Ethereal Armor, attack for 9, so I have to just Reckoner's Bargain away a Familiar to not die here. We will also Deadly Dispute our Clan Shaman, knowing that it doesn't do anything against this guy. Just desperately looking for anything, knowing that I probably don't have any cards in the deck that do any good. I do get that Toxin Analysis, and a Death Touch Flyer looks pretty good against this guy, except for the first strike. So I scoop it up there. Pretty annoying. I will say I don't play against Bogles enough to keep it in my mind all the time. I have played against it to where I know they sometimes, or rather probably often, play Free Wind Falcon and Crimson Acolyte in the sideboard. So I probably need to just keep in a couple of those black removal spells for the sideboard matchups, knowing that they probably bring those in. I will say I took out 2 of the Blightnings because I knew they weren't going to be good. I kept 2 in because I didn't really know what else to put in over them. I probably should have kept 2 snuff outs over the Blightnings. So that was my mistake, and probably, hopefully, something that I will correct next time I play against Bogles. Match 5 here, we get 3 black 2-drops and 4 lands. So we're going to mulligan this. And then we get, this one looks pretty good, just a whole bunch of value. That Blightning, that Galvanic Blast looks beautiful. What to put back is a little bit of a pain. We put back the Reckoner's Bargain. I opt for the discard 2 of my opponent over the draw 2 for myself. Partially, that was because our opponent mulliganed to 6 cards as well, and so I thought it would just be good. But also, I just like Blightning, man. I don't know. We play a forest. No, not a forest. I don't know why I keep thinking we have forests. We play a mountain. They have a swamp, and we play an Ichor Wellspring. So they cycle a troll. I'm thinking could be Golgari Gardens or something like that. Usually I'm the one playing the Troll of Khazad Doom deck, I will say. Like, this is one of my favorite cards, and just happens to... I like black decks, and this is, I feel like, a card that should go in just about every single one. They play another swamp and play a Kumbaj Witches. So looks like mono black control, not a deck you see very often anymore. Definitely has fallen out of favor, but I'm always a fan. So looks pretty sweet. We don't draw land, so we're going to Deadly Dispute our Wellspring, looking for that land. Don't screw us, and we find the swamp. So we're going to play that Blood Fountain. And I don't want to play out the Familiar here with the treasure token because it'll just die to the Witches. I would rather Galvanic Blast the Witches first and then play the Familiar out next turn. They play a Rager, drawing a card. We're going to Deadly Dispute our Blood token, Galvanic Blast the Witches, so that we're able to play the Familiar, take a card out of their hand, which is another Troll. We're going to pass to them. We drew this lovely Snuff out as well, which is just completely useless here. They have another Kumbaj Witches. Luckily, we have another Galvanic Blast, so it's going to be okay. They opt not to attack, seeing as they think they can kill our Familiar next turn with their Witches, which is pretty good for us. And they're down to 3 cards in hand, so I'm going to Blightning them, take 2 of those 3, and they get rid of a Defile and a Rooftop Assassin. Not one I've seen anybody play before, although I will say it has so many words on it, keywords especially, that I did think this was kind of a cool card when it first came out. We're going to swing for 2 here. They're going to take it, and I'm going to play the Drawsforge Bridge and Galvanic Blast the witches. Again, we don't want to lose our familiar. If they want to defile it or something, we can Blood Fountain it back, but I don't want to lose it for basically no value with the witches. They have another Rager, and speaking of, they do defile it. Tack in for 2 here, and we just draw a land. We take the 1 card out of their hand with the Blightning. Not super efficient, but I'm happy to do it. It's another Rager. And we do have Blood Fountain. The problem is we only have the 1 Refurbished Familiar in our graveyard, so I don't really want to sack it now. I'd rather get some more value out of it. But we'll do it next turn, probably, if we don't get anything else. They're going to cycle a Troll for a swamp to play here, and I'm just going to Toxin Analysis their Phyrexian Rager to get a clue, just try to cycle it. I don't think the Toxin Analysis is going to be really important. If I draw a Kart Clan Shaman here, I just need to sacrifice 2 artifacts to blow up their board, so I'm not too concerned with it, and I would rather have the card. They do Witch's Cottage back their Rager, and we're going to sack our clue token. We find that Kart Clan Shaman, and I know that they have a Rager coming up, so I'm actually happy to wait until they've played that and then Kart Clan for all 3 of them, which is going to be some pretty good value. So we're just going to leave up our Blood Fountain here, but probably going to not use it, seeing as I'd rather use it after the Kart Clan has killed itself so that we can get a little bit of extra value here. But apparently I decide to pick up the familiar anyway. I mean, mana efficiency is pretty good too, so that's fair, I guess. We'll play the Shaman, and then I draw another familiar, so we're just going to play a familiar, take their card from their hand, which is a swamp, play the other familiar, get a Reckoner's Bargain, and then I'm going to just pass to them. They swing, we block everything, but we don't want to lose our familiars when we don't have to, so we're going to float 2 black, sack 2 of our artifact lands to the Shaman, and then Reckoner's Bargain the Shaman away, getting every scrap of value that we can, wiping away their 3 creatures, and we have a quick clock on them here, unless they have a way to kill our familiars. They just pass to us, so we're able to Wellspring and Blightning them if we want to. We're going to hit for 4 down to 5, and then, yep, perfect mana for Blightning. Take their last card, put them to 2. It's a Thorn of the Black Rose, not a good card to see when they're beaten down by 2 flyers. They draw a Pestilence, though, and are able to kill both of our flyers with it, so not dead quite yet. But we do have a Blood Fountain, so we're going to buy them back. It'll just take an extra turn or 2. However, they're fighting. They find a Gary, Merchant of Asphodel, which is going to gain them 2 life. Not a ton here, but still not bad. We get to Refurbished Familiar, draw a card, Refurbished Familiar, draw a card, Guildsworn Prowler, and pass to them. They swing with the Grey Merchant, and I block with the Prowler, but then realize if the Prowler dies, and then they also have a removal spell for the Familiar, I won't be able to kill them this turn, so I just cast down the Gary here, keeping all of my 2/1s so that they have to kill 2 of them to be able to survive, and they do not. They scoop it up. Sideboard against Mono Black, we take out the Snuff Outs. They don't seem too good for us. We also take out one of the Kart Clan Shamans. The one that we had in that game worked pretty well, and they do have a good amount of ground creatures, but they don't have a ton that are really that scary, I guess. And they can interact with the Kart Clan Shaman pretty decently. We still have 2 and 2 with the Shaman and the Toxin Analysis in the deck, so it's not like we're abandoning it totally, but I really wanted those 3 Duresses in the deck. It's just a really nice way to take care of the cards in their hand, so I thought that was best. Here we get a pretty great hand, Ichor Wellspring, Deadly Disputes, we have that Shaman in case we need it, and a Galvanic Blast for a Kumbaj Witches or anything like that. So definitely going to snap keep this one. They're going to, once again, swamp, cycle, troll into swamp. We get to play our Drawsforge Bridge. We draw a land, so not going to be looking for that 3rd land on turn 3, which is nice. They Seeker's Squire, a card that I think is pretty cool, if not very good. I have tried it in some decks, and it just misses the mark a little bit. We play our Wellspring. They play a Witches. I have to, once again, blast the Witches because we have a Refurbished Familiar, and I might as well do it when they can't get a damage out of it. They swing for 2 here. We're going to play that Familiar next turn, but we wanted to be more mana efficient. Save up our Deadly Dispute here, which we go ahead and use. And they have another Rager. We get to take a card from their hand, and we do assemble the combo here. And they have 2 creatures on the board that I can use it against. So we're just going to go for the blocks again, fake them out in case they have anything. Go for the Toxin on the Shaman. They cast it down, and I just use the other Toxin. That's what they're there for. Sack the Treasure. I'd rather keep the Clue because I'm potentially looking low on cards, although I have all these Deadly Disputes. Wipe their 2 creatures, gain a little bit of life in the process. And they're at 3 cards. And they lay down another Witches. So we do need to find a removal spell for that. Otherwise, our Familiar is going to die. We Deadly Dispute, our clue. Don't really find anything though, but we are able to just slam down a Gurmag Angler, and we can Reckoner's Bargain away the Familiar if they go for paying with the Witches. They have an Okiba Reckoner Raid and another Witch, and they're going to pass to us, try to make us use it on our turn. I know it's going to die either way, so I might as well just Deadly Dispute the Familiar. I'd rather leave up the Reckoner's Bargain in case they have a removal spell for the Gurmag Angler and gain 7 instead of 4, so that's why I do that. We draw a Blood Fountain, which is going to be pretty good for us here, and get to just start swinging for 5. They got to find an answer, or this is going to kill them pretty quickly. We get to slam down an Acre Wellspring, draw a card here, and we are getting a little bit flooded, but also we have tons of stuff to do with our mana, so not a big deal. Put down a Blood Fountain. Think about cracking the Bargain on the Wellspring, but if they do have a removal spell for the Gurmag Angler, I'd rather use it on that. They have a Seeker Squire, and reveal a Troll, which they put into their graveyard, it looks like. They attack for 2, and we're just going to Blood Fountain back the Refurbished Familiar and the Cart Clan on the end step here. Attack for 5, and I'm going to play the Shaman, and again, don't want to use the Familiar until the Witches are dead. I'm going to use this Shaman for 3 artifacts to blow up the board, but I'd rather get this Nezumi Road Captain that we know is coming off the creature, so I'm willing to let them get a couple pings off the Witches if they want in order to kill the Captain. I'm going to sacrifice a Wellspring and 2 Blood Tokens here, and they just scoop. They obviously see that we're able to wipe their entire board, and that the Gurmag is going to finish them off in just another couple turns. And with that, we're able to get a pretty nice 4-1, I think. The only match we lost was against Bogles, and Bogles is a deck that you don't see super often, at least not right now, but it's a real contender sometimes, and usually the removal decks are going to suffer against it. The previous iteration of this deck we had did have Tithing Blades, so that version would have probably been better against Bogles, but I still think we should be able to stand up against them with the Cart Clan Toxin Analysis combo. I think we got a little bit unlucky game 1, not really seeing that combo at all, but game 2, they got pretty lucky in their card draws. They drew what they needed, but also we did side out all of our removal, knowing that they could have put in some of those red protection creatures that our Shaman is not going to be able to deal with. So it was maybe a little bit of a sideboarding error. I think we could beat that matchup if I was a little bit more familiar with it and was more prepared next time. Overall, though, I thought the deck was pretty sweet. Blightning performed really well. There were definitely some matchups that we wanted to take it out. Bogles, they drain their hand way too quickly, and we're not going on the offensive as much, but it was absolutely phenomenal against Izzet Terror and Turbofog. Very crucial, I think, in winning those matches specifically. So I've also liked that the Familiar is obviously a great card. You're seeing it in tons of decks. It's making them discard a card, so the ability to Familiar and Blightning them in one turn to hit them for 3 cards for as little as 4 mana, I think is absolutely devastating, and I think a real cool thing that this deck does that not a lot of other decks do. I think discard is a really powerful effect that is not utilized enough. It's really only utilized in cards that are objectively powerful, like Refurbished Familiar, but it's not used enough with like Blightning or Raven's Crime is another card that I really like, that I feel like they can just put in so much work if people are willing to take the chance on them a little bit. So having both that discard package and the burn package with the Galvanic and Blightning was really sweet. I might even try to find a way to maybe fit in some more burn in the deck, something that I can do. I don't know if I want to put in any more discard because unfortunately there's not really a payoff for discard other than your opponent not having cards in hand. But I think that it's a pretty sweet play on the original Rakdos Control deck. I'm pretty happy with it and looking forward to testing it a little bit more. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.